Hello, Daisy.
Hello, Shira.
How are you?
Well, living the dream today. It's Wednesday.
Well, this
So
is
good, great stuff.
good. Well, it's good to see you. It's really good to see you. Let's get started and welcome everyone to the Glass House, where we look at business from the inside and the outside. We expose the gap between what's embedded and what is actually embodied. I'm Shara Halixer, founder and chief momentum officer of Engage 3P.
And I'm Daisy Watkins, founder of BW Concepts and LumaPath.ai.
Hey, Daisy. It always makes me laugh. I want to thank you all. I say this every week now, and I really mean it. If you are here today, if you are watching us, we know you have lots and lots of options out there, and you chose to be here with us, and we don't take that lightly, and we really want to make sure that you're getting a lot out of the time that you spend with us. We were actually off last week. It was a nice little break. I hope everyone had happy holidays, whether you celebrate Passover or Easter or anything in between, or anything else. And I'm really glad we're back this week because we're going to be talking about something that Daisy and I have talked about constantly. It started day one, right? And I've been talking about for a long time, and that is authenticity.
Excellent. So we talk about this constantly, being authentic, showing up authentically, build a authentic brand on my end anyway. And in everything I do around AI visibility and how organizations get found, authenticity is the foundation. It is a signal. If the signal is not real, AI will not surface it. So it's a full stop.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, right? I've built my entire practice around the idea that there is a gap between what organizations say and what they actually do and how they present, what's embodied versus what's embedded versus what's embodied. And communication is where that can show up most visibly for everyone, right? And it can be the most expensive as well. Just a quick note, Heather said, hi, my friend Heather, it's hi to see you. And I didn't say at the beginning, and I wish I had, we want to hear from you in this episode. So we're going to make this as interactive as we possibly can. We've come up with some new little tricks that we're going to try this week. So we want to hear from you, comments, questions, give us everything you've got. So I'm really, really excited about that. So I want to start with something, a number. We're going to talk about numbers today, right? We're going to put, what is it? Proof to the pudding to the proof. I'm so tired. I don't know what it is. Anyway, so whatever that expression is, proof in the pudding, right? Is that it?
Yeah.
Proof in the pudding? Okay. Proof in the pudding. So here's a number that literally it stopped me cold because I've done an enormous amount of value engineering work. What is the cost of turnover? What is it costing an organization? Hard dollars, soft dollars. I've talked about this for 20 years. This number I didn't have, and it's now in my back pocket because it's incredible. For every senior leader in your organization earning over $200,000 a year, poor communication is costing $54,860 a year. That does not report. Yeah. So more than 1/4 of that salary is costing the business, right? And that's not showing up anywhere. Nobody's talking about that.
So you're saying that only 21% of employees strongly trust their leaders, which means most leaders are already communicating into credibility deficit before they could even open their mouths. That's quite interesting.
And then here's the other one that kicked me in the head. According to research, we can provide you with all of this, right? 68% of customers have switched from to another competitor, right? From the company with which they were working because of poor communication. And I've got an interesting story that we can talk about that I've been going through the last few weeks. I've mentioned to everybody some LinkedIn challenges that I've been having. So if you want to DM me, I'm happy to talk about it. So it starts internally, it erodes trust, and then it eventually walks out the door with your clients, right? It doesn't stop inside. So here's where today is really going to get interesting. And this is why I'm so excited about bringing our guest. She has a concept that I want you to sit with before she explains it. She, unlike us, does not use the word authenticity. She came up with the phrase and the concept of self-fidelity. And when she explained it to me, I really had to stop because it challenges something Daisy and I have been saying from the beginning, right? We talk about authenticity, authenticity, authenticity. So just sit with it, bear with us, right?
And I will be honest, when Shira told me about it, I was not immediately sure I agreed, but which is exactly why this conversation matters.
Yeah, that's the glass house, right? That's why we're doing this. It's not just to affirm what we already believe in, we test that. So here's the question we're going to walk into today. Okay. Is authenticity at work actually the goal? Or is there something more grounded, more honest, and frankly, more useful underneath it all? Think about it. Our guest believes that the answer starts with how you lead yourself, because how you lead yourself is how you're going to lead everybody else. And if that internal conversation has never been examined, the external one will reflect the same every single time. In every meeting, in every piece of feedback, every hard conversation, you keep almost having. So our guest today is a SHRM senior certified professional, the CEO of Bright Fulcrum. She spent her career inside organizations, watching the same patterns repeat. Leaders invest in communication technique while leaving the source code untouched. Her research produced the numbers you just heard us talk about. And today she's going to take us to the root. Barbara Jenks, welcome to the Glass House.
Hi, Sheriff. Thank you so much.
Welcome, welcome. It's so great to have you. Did I get that all right?
Well, my company is now called Clearly Communicate. It is
Okay,
not
got that right.
Bright Fulcrum any longer. That changed
Okay.
recently. So
Nice, nice. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. We'll get something up there on that. So this is exciting. Thank you for coming. We're really excited to have you here with us today. I'm going to kind of turn this over to Daisy because I know when we did our prep, she was chomping at the bit. So
yeah, should I be afraid?
No,
you shouldn't be afraid. So you mentioned the word, we use authenticity, and you have a definition as self-fidelity. So I'm very, very curious of how you define it. I'm very open to a lot of different things. I'm always learning, and if it's not really to sway or anything, I need to hear others' perspective on it. So. So can you define what self-fidelity means to you and how it applies to what you do currently?
Well, it's essentially the practice of being true to your nature, to who you essentially are, as opposed to like anything that might be basically ego-based, like an outward facing piece of you. And how self-fidelity to me is, it's who you are internally, what your values are. Not necessarily, not your political position, not your wokeness or non-wokeness, not your religion, right? Those things are kind of all outside of you. This is who you are essentially. And pulling those two apart can be a practice for people to do. And some of my coaching gets into that a little bit, especially for people who are younger. All of us, not just Gen Z, I think all of us in our 20s, very idealistic, right? Very idealistic. And then life comes in and we start to realize, it's not so black and white. There is some gray. I need to flex. And so this concept of self-fidelity is really a flexing of what people generally broadly say is authenticity. And the reason why I focus on self-fidelity as a concept and why it's something I want to talk about more as I go forward is when people show up at work with authenticity, right? That can run into somebody else's authenticity and it creates rubs and problems. And that's where I kind of came up with this concept. It's like, well, how can we help people who want to be authentic at work, which you have to do. I do not argue with that. Authenticity, you want to be authentic to your true core self at work. But that can create problems when you don't sort of interlace the kind of the basic building blocks of EQ, right? You kind of need a little bit of that to you have to get along, move along in the workplace to a certain extent, but you don't need to trade your deeply held value. Or, if you're someone who is Christian or is Jewish or is gay or is transsexual. You don't have to change that part of you, but you may have to flex around it a little bit in order to work in the work environment.
Okay. So I had this conversation yesterday with someone, because you and I had just spoken and to prep, and he's also in the and he couldn't be here today because he's had another commitment. So Richard, when you watch this, I'm calling you out. And we got into it. I have been in the space of psychological safety in the workplace for a number of years, right? That's the buzzword today. We want to make sure that people are feeling safe and they're able to communicate their true selves, right? And that's where we get to being authentic. Mm-hmm. What's interesting though, and you and I obviously have talked about this, and I've been thinking about it since you first mentioned this to me. What does that mean? So I tell the story that a friend of mine tells, that when she got out of university, she got her big first corporate job, and she, was wearing the suit and doing the things. And this was, over 10 years ago, I guess. And she's, doing the things. And when she got to work, the women in her group said, "Oh, we should be friends on Facebook." And she's like, "Absolutely not. I'm not being friends with you on Facebook." Because she said who she was on Facebook and what she put out there was a different side of herself that she can't show at work, right? She's in her 20s, she's having fun, she's going to clubs, the club, and she's doing all those things. I have to make Daisy laugh. And she's doing all those things, and she doesn't want to bring that into work. And I said, but that's not who you are authentically. Authentically, you are the woman who goes to the club and shows up to work and does an amazing job. What's wrong with that? Mm-hmm. Right? Now, where does self-fidelity fit into that? And that's obviously a very simple one in comparison to some of the bigger issues, especially today, but where does that fall in?
Well, I think in that respect, it would be aligned with how you just described it. See, the thing about authenticity is it's just, it can be different things to different people. And so when what she does in the club, that's part of essentially who she is. But does everybody at work need to know about her time at the club in order for her to be authentic? No. She can be a clubber and show up to work and get her work done well. Those two things are not inherently inconsistent, but there are some people out there who think, well, you at work, you need to accept my clubbing as I bring that into the workplace. You need to accept that. And that, to me, if you get to that level, that's really someone who's looking for validation because they have to bring it in, as opposed to I can just live with the fact that I'm internally coherent. I am a clubber and I like to work hard and get my work done.
So in that scenario, mm-hmm. Let's take, and I'm making this up, so I have no idea, but let's assume for a second that she worked for a very conservative company. Mm-hmm. And that very conservative company would not approve of her going to the club. And if they found out, they might not want her to work there, right? They may take action. Let's forget mm-hmm. the legal ramifications of any of that. So her fear might be, I don't want them to know this other side of me. They think I'm this corporate, put together, yada, yada person. And I don't want them to know who I am. The argument that I've always talked about when we talk about authenticity is, if I'm not bringing my whole self, if I'm not bringing all of those aspects about myself to what I'm doing, am I losing something? Is something missing from my offering because I'm hiding a part of me that might be interesting and might bring value? So where would self-fidelity come in that spectrum?
I'm not sure that I'm really understanding what the difference is there. Can you kind of boil that down a little bit more? I get that it's, a conservative environment and they might not like the fact right. that I go out clubbing. I get that. So, I just don't want people to know. And I'm kind of on pins and needles a little bit. If they find right. out, I might, I might get in trouble. That's a very, in that kind of a situation, what you do in your private time, I'm just going to default to, my background is employee relations, right? I don't know if I said that yet or not. And, over 20 years in employee relations. So I've dealt with situations like that quite a bit. And to me, unless you are, at a work activity after hours, which can be problematic for many reasons, you what you do on your own time is truly your own time. I'm looking at what, as an HR professional, I'm looking at are you doing your work? Is it on time? Is it acceptable? All the things.
Right.
And that has to be viewed from a disinterested third party standpoint, as far as the HR person and the people who are looking at that time. So those two things are not, it should not be, but it might be, is what you're going to say, right, Shara?
Right. And in the best of all possible worlds, we can separate those things, right? Somebody has the ability, right? But we have our own internal biases. And again, this is kind of a silly example, but think about it in other examples. If I don't like something about someone else, am I going to then take it out on them, right? And so I think that for me, and we're going to lead into what we really want to talk about too, which is communication. Am I communicating effectively? Am I able to bring all of me to the workplace or to whatever it is I'm doing if I'm hiding some of it, right? Do I know that I'm hiding this piece of me, right? I'm hiding the club or whatever. But is that all I'm hiding? Are there other aspects that I'm hiding? Is something else not going to manifest because I'm conscious of the fact that I'm hiding things?
Well, of course, everyone is. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, that's just kind of where my thoughts have been going since we've been talking about this, because we're so into this whole bring your whole self and everything has to be, and we're putting the onus on organizations to say, yes, bring your whole crazy self, and we're going to accept everything all the time, and that's unreasonable. I'm not.
Yes.
and that can create its own level of nonsense. So I'm just interested because I love what you're saying. I think it's fascinating, and I'm just trying to kind of put it in context and make sure I understand.
Right. Well, there's no, you can't stop something from happening. You can really only have control over yourself. Right. So this is about what you're comfortable with, your comfort level. And if you get to a point where you're you feel like you're closing down so much of yourself at work, then it's time to look for another job potentially, or it's time to test the water, get out of your comfort zone of the work that you're doing and take a little risk and do a little, float a little trial balloon with a leadership person that you trust. Hey, I have this side of me. I like to club. I'm afraid if they find out about it, I'm going to be in trouble, but I find I'm shutting down at work and I'm not really contributing the way that I can because I'm worried about this. Could you give me some advice? Do you think they're going to care? I would love to talk to you about that as a trusted.
I like that. Okay.
So that's what I would say on a case-by-case basis. But you have to know yourself, and you really have to know yourself. And that gets to the communicating with yourself, which is the part that I bring to the table. You have to know when you're not contributing to the level that you could be. You have to have a sense of that. You have to develop a sense of that. Because again, when you're in your 20s, not likely you're going to have that fully blown out because you're just starting to get your feet wet in the work world.
So to your point, case by case basis, and so it also depends on your truth, right? As far as we call authentic self, and how you manage that in your workplace. So I'm going to bring it back to number one. Why we're talking about this right now is how we communicate. So we want to talk about when internal communication, not just for yourself, but internal communications with companies or your corporations that you work with, is fractured. It doesn't stay in the building. Okay, so every misaligned message, whether it's an employee talking to somebody outside, you know what I mean? Everything can be very vague. It can be very vague. Every leader who can't say the hard thing clearly, it all leaks outwards, right? So a CEO might be doing a town hall, and the way he communicates it is misconstrued, or the communication itself is not proper. It land properly. It also lands into how your employees take it and how they talk about it outside of that town hall. And also let's go into job postings, right? That say one thing while Glassdoor says another thing about people that have left or are still working there, about their organization. And then we go into LinkedIn content that sounds polished but feels so hollow. So there's that piece of authenticity or self-fidelity, how we're going to bucket that all into a digital presence that now with AI, how it reads as incoherent because the source is incoherent, because now people are using AI to create themselves or amplify themselves, should be the better term for it. But people actually reinvent themselves, from what I've seen, if they can't be authentic and can't really express themselves well. So organizations now spend millions of their external brand without realizing their internal communication and the writing of the real story is not there. So AI doesn't really read their brand guidelines, you know what I mean? So it reads the pattern. So a pattern is confusion, and that redirects AI to deflect the message of what your organization says. So how does that play into what you do right now, Barbara, as far as communication?
Wow, that is a very broad question. You touch on just about every communication topic under the sun.
Exactly.
So let's see. I can hit a couple of those. One of the things that really popped out at me was this incoherence. And I know for sure that when you're building your own brand, or when you're kind of figuring out who you are in the world, that internal incoherence or incongruence, like you say one thing, but you do another, that is the thing that is going to keep your foundation from being solid as you are developing as a person, or as you're refashioning yourself as a person. So that coherence, that internal coherence to who you are as a person, is absolutely key, or you're not going to have any authenticity around. You're not going to sound authentic, and all those problems that you identified, Daisy, coming up with AI land. You know, all the AI in the world cannot fix that piece. That is so fascinating, isn't it? Yes. And thank God, because that's the human piece, right?
Correct.
So as far as internal communications at companies, this is, there's a major, I think, and the research that I've been able to do show, you don't have to look very far either. Just look at Gallup. I mean, Gallup just released another report on the workplace last couple of days. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but it's scathing that leaders cannot talk to their people. There's like 20, I don't know, I think last year's report was like 27% of employees say that in Gallup, it's a huge poll, say that their leaders are clear and that they know what the leaders are saying. There's other research that I've done that says that most leaders or managers cannot identify, for Gen Z who want this specifically, they can't identify how Gen Z's role, the cog in the wheel, how that's feeding into the vision of the company, or how is what they're doing, how is that helping the company in any kind of a meaningful way. That all the managers really know, for the most part, is how your KPI is up or down, right? They just know kind of what's happening with their department. And that is a problem for companies in their communication, especially for Gen Z. They jump ship on something like that because they don't feel like they're valued, and they don't feel like they're contributing to the bigger picture. So that's just one tiny little component of what you identified as problem areas, and I think rightly so. So I hope that answered your question.
Oh, it definitely did. And I brought this up before in a couple of the conversations in one of our sessions, is the generational gap, right? How their attitudes and how their mindset, their values, their morals, as they transition and as they get into the workforce. And then how technology is really, they woke up with technology, were born with technology. We built the technology that they're using right now, if you want to think about it. I'm a Gen X, so I'm proud of that too. So anyway, the way, and I was telling Shira this, as when I was leading a company, I had the 3 layers of generations, myself, and actually have a boomer too, and then the millennials, and then the Gen Z. In the way I communicate, I found that I had to say things 3 times in 3 different ways, so that each of the generations could understand the full message of what either it was a delivery of a service or a change, or what do you call this, a policy change, or just general information, or is a task for everybody to do as a team. I found that the results or the reporting back to me was very, very different, and how they understood the information. So again, it comes to the generation. You bring up such a good point. We need to learn how to communicate to each of this generation and understand what's important to them and how they're going to react to it.
And understand how they view words that we as, Gen Xers have used as meaning one thing, and to them it doesn't mean quite the same thing. So when your manager comes out and says to those 3 layers of generation, this is urgent, this is a urgent task.
Yes.
Right? What is Gen X going to do? They're going to get on it and get it done. Millennials are likely to be not far behind, but Gen Z is like, okay, so urgent means it has to get done today.
Yeah.
Or in the next 24 hours. So even the words we use can be understood differently across the generations or individual to individual.
Absolutely. I didn't know what tea was. I thought it's something you put, sugar and coffee with, and from England. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Didn't realize it's like the truth. Things like that. It's like words that pop up. I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So it is very different. So I think communication's not just geared to you as a leader to be just how you communicate. You have to understand the audience. Doesn't matter how much how much craft you have in being a good speaker, but if you're not speaking to your audience, similar to what you guys do, and in what Shira does in her job, she needs to understand the leader, what generation that leader is that she's doing, her assessments for, because they talk a different language and they hear things differently.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with my clients that are younger, that they want something hypey in their marketing or their brand in the way they communicate. The ones that are more conservative in the way they communicate their authentic self into their brand. So it is very generational. We have to embrace that and understand that as businesses. We're no longer what we were before. So
Can I want to kick off a little poll. May I?
Of course.
Okay. So first of all, I want to know if it's working. Let's see.
This is your opportunity to go rogue on the tech.
I want to see if it's working. Okay. For those of you that are watching us from YouTube or LinkedIn or wherever you're watching us, I hope you're seeing it. I'm actually going to put it over here so we can continue to see our comments, which would be great. And you can tell us if you're seeing it on the screen, and you can respond to it. So we wanted to kind of start to get an idea. So Barbara, one of the other things that you and I have talked about a lot, and I love this concept. When it comes to communication, it starts with how we talk to ourselves, right? Yeah. I always like to say, I speak to myself all the time. And the reason that I ask myself questions is because I get the answers I want. If I ask somebody else, I may not get the answer I want. But if I ask myself, I always get the answer I want.
Your unbiased opinion, of course.
My unbiased opinion, right? And so I want to start there, because we hear this all the time, especially with women, right? How we talk to ourselves is pretty awful. And I don't know, you brought out to me the impact of that as we then lead others or engage with others, because it's our voice, right? And so if we're not kind to ourselves, if we're not good to ourselves, then how can we ever be kind and good to others, right? And I just want, the poll is, when does communication most often, oh, sorry, that's the wrong poll. Oh, no, sorry, it is the right poll. When does communication most often break down in your organization? We want to start with understanding that, right? So we can figure out, where is that bottleneck? Where's that friction? And then we're going to move to the other one, and we'll leave this up for a couple minutes. But I would like you to talk about that, if you would, for just a moment, because I think that's a really powerful, most people don't talk about.
Talking to yourself?
Mm-hmm. How
right.
we talk.
Given it's yeah, you're right. It is. I mean, and when you do, you talk about it in terms of your inner critic, right? Or this constant second guessing, waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning with the sweats going, oh my God, did I really send that email? Or did I really say that? And why did I do that? Right. We've all had that experience. Fortunately for me, I haven't had one of those for a very long time. I've been changing the way I talk to myself for a long time, because part of my background that you didn't say, Sharon, I just want to put this out there so people understand. I'm 35 years clean and sober. So I've been on a journey of changing how I talk to myself for 35 years.
Amazing.
And that has very much informed how I communicate and listen. to people, and it has dovetailed in with all the neuroscience and the work I've done around communication specifically at the Human Communications Institute. That's my bundle of things that I can then bring to the world, and I sprinkle in a little improv because I'm also an improv artist on top of it, because you have to make it fun, or people are not going to walk away with anything. So, but this concept, it really starts with yourself, because I tell you, I have tried in my life over the many years I've been alive that, you put on like, oh, I need to be this way in this situation. And again, I think this is particularly true for women. Oh, I need to be this in this situation. Then you take it off. Oh, I need to be this in this situation. Then you take it off. And again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, which is as a foundation that you build, that when you practice self-fidelity, you're building that foundation upon which you can just be that person in every situation. And you may have a sheer throw that you put on from time to time. We're going to go with that analogy, which is a good one. That kind of obfuscates things about you that particular audience may not appreciate, but you're always that person on the inside. That is the basis for true confidence. And I would challenge anyone to speak with true confidence who doesn't have that foundation. I think that's very hard to do. And because the confidence doesn't come across at, what's the word I'm going to use? Authentic. Doesn't come across as being authentic when you're putting on some other person or some sheer cloth, or it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you don't have that basis in who you are and how you function, if your confidence has nowhere to anchor. And that's why you can see people who are like, wow, look how they handled that situation, right? It's also practice. It's also time. It's, there's other components to that. But your confidence won't be shaken when it's anchored into that essential, authentic self-fidelity, whatever you want to call it, that not in you, that is your true self.
So you have to have your core, your basically your
Yes.
foundation that's grounding you, and then everything else this is why I'm seeing or understanding it. Everything else, the surroundings, creates the situation that you have to address and you have to deal with, which you then put in a sheer for your. It's almost like a cloak, so that you address, anchoring your authentic self, address that particular situation or conversation based on that situation, or the actual conversation, but you stay grounded with your core, but basically pivoting to being sure that you still communicate, or what do you call this, interact with truth.
And when you're in that core, that's when I didn't finish the concept. That's why I think you might be asking that question. When you're operating from that place, then your internal conversation is going to be a confident conversation, as opposed to a conversation of, was that right? Maybe I should do this. But what about that? Oh gosh, that was wrong. You're an idiot. That was stupid. You can't possibly ever do that. I mean, that whole brain then cycles in, right?
Then the first starts to happen, and then this is in a split second you decide, do I engage the same way? Do I engage with conviction? Do I engage with finesse? And then immediately, not just the personality, but what do you call this? How you, I guess, your politeness. I can't think of the word right now. My thoughts are going off. I saw a comment here that I want you to comment as well. I'm sorry, I was in the corner of my eye. Sorry. I see squirrels all the time.
No, it's hard to watch the comments and talk and pay attention.
I'm like a squirrel person. Wait a minute, I saw something else.
Well, which comment is it, Daisy? Which one's got your attention?
About with understanding your audience, right? So same thing. Same what we're talking about. We're talking about something that from your communications institute, like it's back in the 50s, the Myers-Briggs were part of this communication, and it was developed by Catherine Briggs and Isabel Myers, and based on the Carl Jung's theory of communication. So I don't know if you saw Heather's comment about that, about the different learning styles. Is that something that you incorporate? Obviously part of the science and behavioral psychology of how we determine our personalities, I guess.
I mean, everything old is new again, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, anything I'm talking about today, except with the exception of maybe self-fidelity, because that's not a concept I've ever heard kind of discussed. I don't think it's a scientific one. I think it's one that I came up with because I was really struggling with like self-efficacy, self-fidelity, and authenticity. And I was working with a client last year that just came up, and I did a lot of looking into that. There's a ton of communication works and books and studies and etc. been going on since the beginning of time. I mean, it really has been going on for a long time. And I think there is a lot of things that get, like, oh yeah, that's right, that's from Myers-Briggs, or oh yeah, that's right, that's from these other studies from the 50s. I think that they are valid, and they are just being restated in, a little bit differently as we move forward in the world. But yeah, those are definitely issues and concepts that have been around for a long time that, again, are not taught to us in a way that we are able to bring into the workplace. I feel like I'm talking a lot, but there was something interesting that came up. You guys just shut me down if I'm going off topic or something. Ethan Mollick, who is an MBA, he's not an MBA, he's an instructor, he's a business instructor, big guy at Wharton. And he posted something a couple of months ago, and he made a comment about how, and I'm going to bastardize this, Ethan, I hope you don't take offense, but there was a concept about, for his MBA students, and he was talking about how with AI, that managers already naturally know how to talk to their employees. And they already naturally know all these things that they learned in Management 101 when they got their MBAs. So this part of AI that he was describing at the time is going to be easy for them. And I commented back, I'm like, no, it's not, because Management 101, while everyone may have gone through that course, is, not applied at work on a regular basis. That has been my experience. So that is, that's just not how it goes, because you have to actually change your behavior, which is the other. So that's like a whole nother thing about bringing AI into the workplace. It's not a tool, it's a behavior change that's going to be required for people who are bringing that in successfully. And that requires a different way of communicating and really making a change, which is not easy to do.
No, it's not
work.
Yeah, AI, to use AI in the way we use it is a strategic. The way you think has to be strategic, because you collaborate with the tool. It enhances your strategic mind. For me anyway, this is personal.
100%, I agree.
You know what I mean? So I have conversations that are just not, tell me this, do this for me. It's like, all right, this is what I want to accomplish. Before we were taught prompt engineering. Pretend you are, with AI when it first came out, pretend you are, a copywriter. And this is my output goal, and these are the things, this is the context around it. We were taught. That's how when it first came out. Now it's very NLP, natural language,
processing,
where you just speak. Basically, you speak to it, and it arranges your thoughts or your words. I don't care about spelling. I don't have writer's block when I'm typing. When I'm speaking, I could stutter because I have, a dysfunction, personally, but no, I'm kidding. I don't. But with typing, you get writer's block. You're concerned about the comma, the punctuation, the grammar, all that kind of stuff. When you just talk, it kind of meshes it up for you and summarizes it for you better than you probably could, right? So there's that tool and how you communicate. Then when it gives it back to you, then you challenge it. But I am going to guarantee you, a lot of the people, the masses, don't use it the same way we do. So they think that they get an answer, and that's the answer from, quote unquote, God.
That's right. You're talking to an intern, basically.
$1 million in 30 days. Look at all these steps that I need to do. Then the execution happens. They don't challenge the execution. They look at all the other layers involved with it, and then they fail. So this is where AI becomes like, it sucks, versus are you using it properly in the way you communicate with it as well? So to your point, it is a change, not just
a behavior change. Yes.
Change.
Yeah. And you have to think of it as an intern, because it's not, it's only going to go as deep as it can because it wants to please you and get you the answer. It's like, well, no, you've got to really push back hard and often. And that does create that critical thinking muscle. And I totally agree with you, Daisy. The 100% this is making us better thinkers when you use it the way that we need
But
to.
people don't see it that way. So
Yeah.
the education, the communication that comes around AI is like, if you're not using it to challenge, it's not just, I don't even know how to say it, but you have to use it so that you have also think. You don't just let it think for you, because otherwise you're just talking to a wall that just gives you answers that
You
you
get
want.
slop. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, there's no question. This might be a little tiny bit off target, but I want to make sure we get our outside story in, because, we do this every week, Barbara. We try to find real life examples of kind of the topic that we're talking about, not just from our own experiences, but what else is going on in the outside world. And it's because the glass house is not just about what we know, right? It's about what's happening out there and what people are seeing. And this week, I found a good one, right? That I'm going to let Daisy take the lead on this one, because I think it's definitely up your alley, but I think it's one that we want your opinion on, and we're going to have a little bit of a chit chat about it. So Daisy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So give me 1 second here. So it was in March 2023. There was a Miller Knoll CEO, and this was through, I forget which was our source here. Shira.
Oh, we have a couple. It was an NPR story, which actually I can even put up the little things with NPR, and also Fast Company. Yeah. So that's a QR code to the story itself. Yeah.
So this is about Owen I'm talking about, right? The guy, the CEO about
CEO.
town.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So he had 75 minutes really to have a town hall, right? And focused on performance goals, customer service, and the year ahead. By every measure, a complete and a very thoughtful communication. Then came the last 90 seconds. An employee asked how the team should stay motivated if bonuses were cut. Owen told her people to stop asking about what they would do if they did not get the bonus. She said to leave the pity city, get the damn $26 million, and then the meeting ended. That was the message. That 90-second clip reached 20 million people. She received death threats. She later said her intention was to motivate and rally. That was internally very fiery, right? That she said that she wanted to get the troops moving. The message was embedded. The message she embedded was urgency, right? And believed in her team. The message that landed was dismissal. 75 minutes embedded, 90 seconds embodied, and the 90 seconds was the truth and where she actually was internally when she walked out of the room. And here's what gets the glass house moment. That clip did not stay in the town hall. It became what AI and the market now associates with Miller Knoll's leadership. Really bad. So for that few seconds, the internal state became an external signal permanently. Now they could not optimize the way they want to get out of it. Now the source has to be right before the signal can go out. That's how we see it as a glass house. So anyway, that's how damaging what you can do in a few seconds if you don't communicate or understand how you're communicating.
And know your audience, which we also talked about, and then know how it's going to land with them. And I would also put in my number one place I start with all my communication coaching is state management. What is your internal state? When you're on a stage, you can never forget what your state is so that you don't get knocked off your game like she did. And I could go on, but I won't. Go ahead, Sharon.
No, I was going to say, that's exactly where I was going to go. I would argue that there was an enormous amount of effort and careful, deliberate work done on those first 88 and a half minutes, right? Yeah. To create a town hall and a dialogue that was going to inspire and be positive and do all the things that a CEO wants a town hall to do. One question knocked her off her game, right? And, I always say, it's okay to say, you know what? I'm not sure. I want to think about that, right? When we talk about being a great communicator, doesn't mean you always have to have every answer. It also means you can say to someone, I don't have an answer for you on that one. But you know what I am going to do? I'm going to take this back and I'm going to come back to you in 3 days, in 9 days, in 12, whatever it is, right? we don't just have to blather in order to be, because we're not heard. And don't get me started on the whole thing with town halls anyway, because I'm surprised they lasted 90 minutes. But I think that to me was really interesting when it came to did she internalize that question first before that came out of her mouth? Or was that a just spew of something without any consideration for how it was going to land? And
well,
what was
having worked in the entertainment industry for a very long time, I've seen a lot of people just, kind of talk off the cuff like that. And my experience has been that's the real person. Because when you get high up on any food chain, there's a lot of edits that you need to make to who you are. If that's who you are on the inside, it's like, get the job done, right? That's who you are on the inside. That is going to pop out. It goes back to what I said earlier today. It's like, if we don't get clear and congruent internally, it does gonna pop out. And unfortunately for her, that was a very visible pop out. And she didn't prepare. I would argue that if it sounds to me, the question contemplated that there was some conversation around the fact that they weren't going to be getting raises. And that question that she got should have been one that they anticipated getting and they could have practiced. And that to me goes to a little bit to prep. If they may not have time, they may not have thought of it. I mean, hindsight's 20/20, but that often does come up with good prep work.
That's what Rebecca said. Hindsight is 20/20. Thank you, Rebecca. I think it's fascinating, right? We are now in the last number of years, it's the cancel culture. You talk about entertainment and things that people say. And when people get a platform, and everybody today has a platform, right?
Yeah.
Here's your platform, right? And so
here we are on our platform.
Here we are on our platform. God knows what's out there for me. But I think that I think that it goes back to what we started with, right? Can I be authentically who I am, right? Which is somebody who will screw up something in tech every single week, who loves to make Daisy laugh, and I try to do that every week, who loves to have wonderful guests that join our show and try to get our point of view across, and be myself and do what I want to do, right? So, we do this every week. We prep for this every week, right? I try to make it as spontaneous as possible. I don't want to rehearse it. I don't want to, we want to just have a conversation. And I think that we see every day people saying things and then they're backpedaling, right? Oh my God, I didn't mean to say that. Oh, that's not what I meant. Oh, you got the intention wrong. Barbara, you and I talked about this the other day.
Boy, yeah,
perception is reality.
Yeah.
Perception is reality, right? It doesn't matter what my intent was. How it is perceived is that person's reality.
And that is a bitter pill to swallow,
right?
When you are learning about life and you're on that journey. And at some point in time, you get to a place where you're like, you know what? That's really the answer. It's how are they perceiving? And that goes back to know your audience. And how are you going to engage them and listen and talk to them so that they will actually get what you are trying to deliver?
So I want to address the comment here by Linda. Linda, thank you for joining us. She made the comment for the conversation. Authenticity has been a refreshing addition to the work culture and professional life toolbox. And I believe we are still yet fully exploit. Self-fidelity is interesting as well. How, in a very simple example, does this differ from and is superior to authenticity?
So, what self-fidelity is, we're talking about here about authenticity and self-fidelity. I think that authenticity is this very broad concept, right? That can mean many things to many people. And to me, self-fidelity is sort of the little, shouldn't cover up my mouth. Self-fidelity is like the little piece that it's anchored to. It's that core piece on the inside of really who you are. Sometimes, like I was saying earlier, especially younger generation can get caught up in, but not just younger generation, because of the lack of experience and the lack of being in the work environment. Again, this is a concept that came up for me as I was discussing the work environment with a coaching client who's young. So that's how this all came up. That in the work environment, particularly, there are parts of you out here, like we talked about, that don't belong in the workplace. And by insisting that it absolutely needs to be in the workplace, creates unnecessary rub, makes it harder on you in the long run and the people you're working with. So it's a matter of being discerning on, who are you at work, and do you need to tell everyone that you're gay? You know what? Maybe you do. However, that's a choice you get to make. And by saying you're gay doesn't mean everybody else has to reveal some part of them. I've gotten into this conversation with organizational development people quite a bit because they want everybody to come to work and have kumbaya going on all the time. And I'm like, oh, that's a huge liability for the company to be that broad. So we've had those conversations, and I am on the side of, we all want to work in a place that's safe for all of us. And if we stick with the pieces that underlie solid EQ, conscientiousness, kindness, empathy, listening, and the other components that we all know belong in EQ land, if we can take our authentic self and mix it together with some of that, with the EQ components, that is maybe the easiest way to define self-fidelity for this conversation. That's really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about have that true self, that who you are not going to get knocked off of, and that you're not going to let push around. You're not going to let your boss talk smack about gay people. You shouldn't do that anyway, even if you're not gay. But you know what I mean? It's you can stand up, but you don't have to reveal. And if you do reveal, don't expect other people to reveal back, because that's a component that comes into it as well. Well, I told you all my dirty laundry. What's yours? It's like, okay, well, I don't want to tell you what mine is.
It's so interesting. As we get older, one of the benefits is that we know more of who we are, hopefully, right? We get clearer on who we are and what triggers us and what doesn't, and what we accept and what we don't, and kind of our place in the world and how we're going to be in it. And one of the things for me, and I wrote a blog post about it, it's on my Engage 3P page. And it's funny, Barbara, and I'm only bringing this up because it just triggered. You said I shouldn't cover my mouth.
She froze on us, but that's okay.
Not when I'm on camera.
Yeah, no. She froze on us. So Barbara, she's talking about a blog. So I'm going to bring back, you talked about you were in improv. I did not realize that you have a book. So improv, my overthinker. So that's kind of, I love that. So which means
that's my next book. That's the book I'm working on.
That's why
improv broke my overthinker. Yeah.
All right. So what's the book you have right now?
Well, I wrote a chapter in a compilation book called Choose Confidence.
Okay.
And it's about my journey to how I became the person who I am today.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And the journey of that and what you can do. And it's basically my coaching that I coach now.
I want to talk about your book coming out, which I love. So the leaders.
Well, it's not coming out, it's being written.
It's being written right now. So the leaders I work with who overthink in their LinkedIn content, who draft and delete, who can't post anything without running it past 3 people. Is that the same pattern you see on how they communicate internally? Let's think about this, right?
Yeah, that's a confidence piece right there.
Yeah. Is the overthinker the same person in the meeting room as on the platform?
It's the perfectionist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The inner perfectionist just comes out, and then your analyzer goes like this. Ooh, right? Can't stop thinking. And yeah. So that's a matter of they got to push himself out of that. And that's what improv did for me, frankly. I was a champion overthinker.
Okay. So you can get an idea of how they communicate and how they do things based on, or how they are truly their personality, like part of their core or their foundation is being a perfectionist. So that's one trait you have to kind of be aware of as you communicate with them.
Well, that's something that can rear its head. Yes.
Okay. So being observant. Yeah. No, you're not frozen anymore.
Okay.
All right. So good.
Okay. Thanks for picking up on that. I didn't know I was frozen the whole time. So I want to go back to this for just a second, because I think it really speaks to, and we've only got a couple minutes left, and I want to make sure everyone knows how to reach you and what's going on. But the reason I brought it up is because the word should is a trigger for me. It's a word that I heard my whole life. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I realized it's a word I never want to use because it is nothing but judgment. And that's what I wrote about, right? And so when we talk about how we talk to ourselves, I shouldn't have done that, right? I think that's the beginning of communication with ourselves. Why would we judge ourselves, or why would we judge others about, because there's no way, we can only know what we know at the time that we know it. We can only do our best, hopefully, and prepare the best we can. But it was interesting how that just one word, and I titled the blog post, "Should is a 4-letter word," because I think it has nothing but disdain, right? And so if people take away something from this, it's one, be kind to ourselves, give ourselves grace, talk to ourselves in a good way. I don't remember who it was that said it, somebody who wrote a book, but said, if we say something to ourselves, would we ever say that to our best friend? Would we talk to our best friend the way we talk to ourselves?
I have a quick tip for people who want to stop saying should, right? So catch yourself. The awareness is the first step. You got to get aware. So catch yourself the next time you say, I should have done, you can say, oh, wait a minute. Is it should, or is it just next time that's going to be X? Move on from there. I mean, just to just keep moving toward the future instead of looking behind us all the time. That's one tip. I just wanted to leave them with that, since you brought up that word. It's a tough word.
I love that. I love that. Or I will moving forward. Can you say that too?
Yeah. All right. I want to make sure everybody knows how to find you. So for those of you who want to connect Barbara, they can find you on LinkedIn. This is a QR code that takes them directly to your LinkedIn, and you can mention that they saw you on the Glass House and connect with you there. Is there anything else about what you're doing that you want to talk about in our last minute or so?
Just that it's simple to change the way you talk to yourself. It's not easy, but it's simple. And I have a 12-week program because you need to be able to have support over time. That's what will change the habit and make sure that you've changed the habit over the future. And it's as simple as, like I just said, catching yourself, catching a word that you use. You can also play with other words that are more fun, like, oh, this is easy. I'm going to totally get this. Next time you think that, oh, I can't possibly do this, it's like, oh, this is easy. I got this, right? So to change, just those little changes will change your communication dramatically, I promise.
I love that. I really do. I want to make sure everyone knows also how to reach us, how to reach me, how to reach Daisy. We really want to encourage you, connect with us if you're not already. Let us know what you think. Barbara, there is no doubt we need to schedule you to come back, because we talked about so many different things and we need to, hone in. So for those of you who are watching live, or if you watch this recorded, reach out to me or to Daisy, let us know, or to Barbara, and let us know what else you want to hear and what else you want to talk about. For everybody out there, if you want to be a guest on the Glass House, we would love to have you. If you have a point of view that you think you want to put out into the world, we'd love to share the stories of all of you, right? We're all coming to this authentically with something to share for the world and bring good things in our businesses and in our lives. And I think it's a wonderful thing to tell these stories so that we can learn from each other, right? Because it's so easy, especially today when so many people are remote and the turmoils around the world, that we kind of miss the connections that I think we used to have, which I think is important.
I'm going to end on a note with Rebecca Marie saying, I am moving forward, watch me move. We are all moving forward, and watch us all move. Thank you, Rebecca, for that. And thank you for everybody.
I love that. That's amazing. We will be back next week with another episode of The Glass House. We are also going to again, we're all plugging our stuff, right? So we have to do it. Daisy and I have this wonderful Glass House workshops. And you can find the information both on my website and on Daisy's website, or reach out to us, because again, the opportunity to learn from others, to be able to create new habits, to be able to understand and see things differently is really something that we want to be able to share our knowledge and what we, the hard knocks that we went through, and make things better for other people as well. So we encourage everyone to join and come take the journey with us. It's fun. We're having a good time. Barbara,
everybody.
thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Sorry,
Thank you
Daisy.
so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Don't forget to join us next week, same time, same day. And thank you so much for everybody that joined us today. Have a good rest of your week.
Have a great week, everyone.